welcome to Best of Three. I'm StillJustMike, and I'm here with Alex Kim. And today we have a very special guest. We have Wim Stocks in the studio today. How are you, Wim?
How are you guys?
Hello,
Alex. Nice to be here.
Yeah, it's nice to have you here.
Thank you.
Thanks for making it out. It's kind of snowy outside, but you know.
How is it that Toronto can't figure out how to clear sidewalks?
Right?
Isn't that nuts?
It's nuts.
I'm from Minneapolis, and it's not necessarily great there, but this is the first snowfall of the year. You got to take care of this.
Definitely.
Or
it's just going to pile up.
It just piles up, and it will be this way till March. So, well, that's my one rant.
It feels like they push all the snow off the roads and onto the sidewalks, and then just leave it there.
That is exactly what. And then when a car pulls over to pick you up, a taxi or Uber, you can't get in it because already the snowdrift is
right. Well, I mean, for me, I just moved as of like a month ago, and so. A lot of my stuff isn't in the house, so I didn't have a shovel. I didn't have my boots. I had to go outside and shovel the snow this morning at 6:30 in my running shoes with like this
plastic shovel.
Pretty much. My daughter's little sandcastle makers. Yeah. So today we're here with Wim to talk about specifically World Gaming and Collegiate Star League. We're going to go into a little bit of what those two organizations are, but what Wim is the CEO of both of those. And I find that with large scale organizations like that, it is so far out of our wheelhouse that we needed to bring in someone like you and to kind of shed a little bit of light on what someone at that C-suite level does. Because we're just not sure. And we think that this is a nice kind of opportunity to educate our audience on where we can go with that.
Sure.
How that goes in business. So to give a little bit of backstory, I thought that maybe I could toss it over to you. And let's go into World Gaming first. Actually, You know what? Before we go into World Gaming, let's talk about you.
Hey.
Tell me a little bit about your history.
Well, I've been involved. It's a pretty simple, straight line path for my career. I've been involved in the video game business for as long as there's been a video game business.
It's been a long time.
Over 30 years, and ran publishing for Atari. I would describe it as the second heyday of Atari. The first heyday was Nolan Bushnell and all the wild things going on in. When the Atari system was really thought of as a toy,
right?
We took over the brand in the late '90s as part of an acquisition of Hasbro Interactive. Hasbro, the toy company, had an interactive division. They didn't know what to do with it. We ended up buying it from them, and the great thing about it was that we got all the Hasbro licenses. We were part of, and the company that I'll always remember so fondly and has relevance today, even though the name doesn't exist, is a company called GT Interactive. I was head of sales, marketing, publishing, licensing, all the business side of GT Interactive. And GT Interactive in the late 80s, early 90s was noteworthy. We really cornered the market on first-person shooters. We had Doom, Quake, Duke Nukem, Unreal, Unreal Tournament, and this was anybody publishing a shooter wanted to publish it with us. So, of course. So we have a great legacy with those properties and those IP. And growing up in that space with Unreal, we were very close with Epic. Now, of course, Epic is sitting on top of the stratosphere with Fortnite and soon to be Rocket League. There's some big news will be coming out of them really? In the not too distant future. Yeah. Oh. So it's funny how even in my early days, Mark Rain, who is one of the founders of Epic, we kind of cut our teeth in the games business at the same time. So he's got a lot more money than I do. Let's just be clear about that. Even in the early days, we'd go to the Epic offices in North Carolina, and even the receptionists were driving Bentleys. So they've been printing money for a long time, and now, but they're a great group. They're very smart, obviously, and so to the point of this is that my time in the gaming business really gave way to now my time in the eSports business, it was, to me, it was sort of a natural evolution. So many people think, oh, this esports kind of came out of nowhere, and
it's really not the case.
No, it's not. And for gaming, and why do you play a game? You play a game because you like to compete, you want to win, you want to do well, you play with your friends. Of course, this is where gaming was heading. And when we started World Gaming back in 2009, we were 2 years in stealth, getting the platform ready. Our big asset is a technology play, a tech platform that enables people to play against one another for money. That was the starting point of World Gaming. And
I remember the first time I heard about World Gaming was actually on Dragon's Den.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So
that was because of Mike Weckerly. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. He was one of the big. His company, Difference Capital, was the one of the early big investors in what we were doing at World Gaming. But we also, and you might remember, we didn't launch publicly as World Gaming. We founded the company as World Gaming and did a lot of the stealth work and development of the platform as World Gaming. But when we launched as Virgin Gaming. And the story around that was as we were getting ready to launch, there was a gentleman here in Toronto. His name was Andrew Black, who was running Virgin Mobile. And we were close to him. We were in many different meetings raising money, and this was before Difference Capital came in. And he said, called up me and one of the founders and said, does Richard know about this? And I go, Richard who? And he said, well, Richard Branson. And I said, well, no, why would he know about this? And none of us know him, and how would we ever have made a connection with him? And he said, this is exactly what he would want to see. Wow. 2009, no, word eSports doesn't even exist, and yet we knew that we were onto something, that we could build a platform that would enable people to play one another for cash, for money. It's not illegal. It was very misunderstood in the early days that is considered, video gaming is considered a game of skill.
Yeah, it is.
And so that isn't gambling. When you and I play, Alex, play each other for a $5 Halo match, let's say, that is a game of skill. If you and I are wagering against one another, that's not illegal. It's not gambling. But if a third party comes in and bets on our outcome, that's gambling. That's gambling. So, but we had to educate a lot of people in the early days.
So just a quick question cutting in there. A lot of people see poker as something similar, the closest sort of gambling game to esports. What do you think the difference between sort of like poker and esports is?
Well, I think that you'll get a lot of argument from poker players that it's a game of skill, but the test to me it's simple. So let's say you and I play. I'll go back to Halo. You and I play 10,000, or I play 10,000 matches of Halo, and this is your first match of Halo.
Yes.
Who's going to win?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely the 10,000.
I could play 10,000 hands of poker. You could play your first hand of poker.
Oh yeah, and I could still win.
You could still win. So that's sort of the test. Now there is a technical test of what is a game of skill versus what is not. If 50% of the outcome of the game is determined by skill, or 50% or greater of a game is determined by skill, then that's a game of skill. But if it's less than that, it could be considered gambling.
Right.
So that's we learned every rule and every legislation there was around skill-based gaming, and we had to go for. Well, I'll get to that in a minute. But so as we were this conversation with Andrew Black, 10 days later, we were sitting in Richard Branson's office in London,
amazing,
telling him about what this platform was. And again, this is in 2009. Esports competitions, they were happening, but they were very small scale, and none of them were happening online. There were people picking up their Xboxes and landing them together, driving to hotels and putting on big Madden tournaments. Our vision was we can do that exact thing, but do it online.
Yeah, and most of it was happening overseas or in Asia and stuff like that at that point. So.
It was that the bigger competitions were, but there was certainly a groundswell of competitive play going on in the U.S. I remember going to my first, didn't even know what it was. In 1997, I went to I was into a warehouse in San Francisco to see a Street Fighter competition. Yeah,
that's crazy.
So
I can't even imagine.
It felt like a fight club, and there were 3,000 people there.
What?
In a warehouse in San Francisco. It felt just like Fight Club. It felt like we were going to some illegal fight club, and it was all these PlayStations land together for a PlayStation tournament. I don't remember what Street Fighter it was. I think it was Street Fighter 3 or 2 or 3 in any event.
2 decades ago. I can't even imagine what the scene must have been like there. It's just super grassroots, but with such a community behind it.
Super grassroots. And the great thing about Capcom is that they kept that grassroots feel for a long time. Well, we're jumping around too much, but
that's okay.
But that was when and I can't say that was an eye opener for me. I just thought it's a function of the game. And you go to arcade to play Street Fighter, and people line up to play with one another.
There are tons of people
popping their coins.
Yeah. So it didn't feel foreign to me at the time, or that it was a huge phenomenon. It just felt, well, this is a natural way that people want to play. And yes, the better you get, the more you want to show your skills and prove your skills. And there are a lot of people who are getting better, and putting them into big competitions I felt it was just like a natural. So in any event, we're sitting with Richard Branson. He says, I love what you guys are about to launch. I want to buy the company.
Wow.
He said, oh, we don't, it's not for sale. We at that point didn't even have one partnership. We didn't have a single publisher when we were talking about this. And he loved it, and he said, "No, we're not going to sell. We think we can build this into something big." And long story short, he said, "Okay, then I want to make an investment in the company." I said, "Great, we love that." And we went down the path with his corporate dev group. We could not get a deal together. That was way too onerous. We were about to walk away, and Richard Branson said we had to call him and say, "Richard, we can't get a deal done." And he said, "Okay, here's what we're going to do. I'll give you $250,000 and I'll let you have the Virgin license for no fee."
Wow.
And we ended up at the nth hour having to agree to a 1% royalty on use of the Virgin marks based on gross. It turned out to be just an okay deal. But in any event, we ended up launching. That was in February of 2010. We ended up launching the company in June of 2010 at E3 as Virgin Gaming.
Wow.
And we had an armored truck with $1 million, fake $1 million, but sitting up front, because this was about playing now finally in a big sort of launch, playing video games for cash. And it was the start of my dive into competitive gaming, into eSports. But we were very early in the dynamic, and very early in the space. And we MLG had launched not long before us, a couple years before us, but they were doing true competitions and true tournaments. Ours was all online. We actually in the early days had no visions of doing live events. We were actually talking to MLG about, well, let us run the online. You guys fulfill the culmination of a live event. We actually had some great conversations about that in the early days. But in fact, they did one until they thought we were too competitive and we were getting a lot of momentum. It was true. Their online, their online tournament structure and platform was game battles, and ours was doing really well. We had publisher deals lined up. We were working with just about every major publisher, and had a very different model where all the money that we collected on our VIG, our we called it a game management fee, and we would share with the publishers. So that was how we got the licenses for all the games. In any event, that was Virgin Gaming, and we got into that was 2010. We signed our first deal that fall with EA. We got in. We actually got physically or technically integrated with the Madden game, the FIFA game, and the NHL game, and then with one other Battlefield, and so that was our big launch. Not long after that, we got 2K on board with NBA 2K. We did a couple other integrations with games of theirs. We got Microsoft on board. We did a bunch of Halo stuff. So at that point, so now we're into late 2011, 2012. We are really rolling with with tournaments. Our first big tournament with Virgin Gaming was the EA. We called the EA Challenge Series. We gave away $1 million.
Wow.
2 years in a row playing Madden or FIFA or NHL. The $1 million was a collective prize pool. Yeah. So there was a winner in Madden, there was a winner in FIFA, and there was a winner in NHL.
What did the prize pools elsewhere look like at that time?
There were nothing close to $1 million. So
I can imagine. That's a lot of cash.
We did that for 2 years in a row with EA support, and Sony wanted to be the exclusive partner, so we got a little sponsorship money from them.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But that was our legacy, and it wasn't long after that we started running into all sorts of conflicts with brands around the Virgin. Around the Virgin brand. Good. Here's the best example. We're planning a World Cup event for the FIFA game, for the EA FIFA game in 2014 when it was World Cup year.
Yep.
Right.
Brazil, I believe it was, Rio that year. And we had planned for 8 months to do a parallel video gaming FIFA. This was before FIFA Interactive World Cup, and we were really the first one doing this on a large scale basis. I believe our prize pool at the time was going to be $500,000 for the one game.
One title,
But it was a World Cup format. The players were representing their countries, and as we were 2 months away from launch, and I got a call from, remember it very well, the gentleman's name is Sam Cooper, who was he was the FIFA product manager at EA. This is still really early on in the. Again, eSports, that word still doesn't exist in 2014.
Of course.
And he calls me and said, we have a problem. We have to squash this tournament. I said,
no.
What do you mean? And he said, well, we took it to FIFA, as we have to, and FIFA has rubber stamped everything we've taken them up until now. They see the Virgin name, and they all they can see is an airline. I said, well, we're not an airline. And why is that a problem? He said, well, FIFA sells a $200 million a year sponsorship to Emirates, and if with Virgin all over this tournament, they're not going to allow it. And we tried all sorts of different iterations. Long and short of it is, we got through. We unfortunately couldn't run the tournament, but it was funny how that started to happen more and more and more. More brands were having issues with the Virgin brand, and as for us, sponsorships are a big part of the economic engine that drives our events.
Of course.
So long story. Going into the end of 2014, we end up having to give the license back to Virgin.
Right.
We relaunched in late 2014 as World Gaming, and then 2015 is when we bought CSL, which I'll talk about Starlink in a bit. And then. And it was that fall when we struck the deal with Cineplex to do a strategic partnership that ended up being an acquisition, at least a partial acquisition of World Gaming at that point in time, and not only buying the bulk of World Gaming, but also buying CSL as a result. So
I am so interested in the Cineplex partnership / acquisition, or other way around, that happened. Can you go a little bit more into the Cineplex Cineplex deal?
Sure. Yeah. So that earlier in 2015, what started it was really a strategic partnership sort of plan, or at least the vision was, and here Cineplex sees Staples Center selling out in 5 minutes, and Madison Square Garden selling out in 7 minutes, and they say, "Wow, we have all these theaters sitting empty for the bulk of the day.
Right.
What a great way to bring more people into the theaters." So we met about configuration, what would be required, what the design should look like, all those kind of things. And as we were getting into that process, what started as I said, a partnership discussion became I said, we want to buy. We want to buy you. So that took a little bit of time to work out. But by the fall, we were owned largely, not entirely, but largely by Cineplex. Yeah. And our big first event under the Cineplex umbrella was a Call of Duty event. And we did a strange, very, very strange Call of Duty event in January 2016. It was an online qualifier on the World Gaming platform.
Yeah,
makes sense.
But it was 1v1.
Okay.
And it was fun. It was really a lot of fun. But the same time as we're doing this Activision's launching the Call of Duty World League.
Right.
So they needed us to do 1v1 so it wouldn't confuse people that this was part of the new Call of Duty World League.
That makes sense.
But it was, we had over 5,000 people compete online.
Fantastic.
On 1v1, and I frankly wasn't convinced we'd get anybody to show up with 1v1. But after
a lot of people,
we had a lot of people, and that was a great first event. First event where we held the finals in the Cineplex Theater.
Right.
Worked pretty well, but early on saw some of the limitations of theaters for hosting esports events, largely around the fact that a theater is designed to sit in and look straight ahead for 2.5, 3 hours.
Right. Exactly.
You can talk to the person on your right, you can talk to the person on your left, but there's no flow. What people were doing was getting up, walking around, coming back. But when they walk around, they're in the way of people trying to see the theater. So or seeing the screen. So it was very early on that we said the theaters are working just okay. Certain events we can host in theaters, but certain events we can't. And so we've done since then. We've done some events, as I mentioned, in theaters, but most of our events are outside of the Cineplex theaters. We've done things at Rec Room. We've done things at Real Sports in downtown Toronto. We've done a lot of events in the U.S. at Xfinity Live, which is in Philadelphia, at Huntington Beach, the Alt Arena there. Okay. We've done a DreamHack in Austin. We've had a number of different events outside of theaters, and flows better, more social. Yeah. Our events, as you're probably aware, we aren't. We're not the pro side of things. We're the amateur side of things. And what has happened the last 2 years, which has really clarified the pro side of things for so many people, has also really clarified who we are. And again, that's the amateur side.
Well, you guys have done a lot of events that culminate in a team being able to compete at the pro level after winning the tournament or something like that. And that's a path to pro that is really missing right now.
That's been our mission and our mantra, and it's great to hear you echo that is an important part of who we are and what we do, and the value that we not only bring to players, but the value that we bring to the publishers. The publishers are so consumed with what they're doing on the pro side. Exactly. They don't have the abilities and the bandwidth or the resources to build a strong, solid developmental funnel. And our events, if you come to one of our Call of Duty events versus going to an MLG Call of Duty event, you'll see right away ours are friendlier, more accessible, fun. We want as many people playing in our events as possible. Yes, you get to the end you're going to face some pretty good teams, and yes, if you're not good, you're going to get your butt handed to you. But our whole mission is to we get a team into the finals, through the finals. They're our winner. We work closely with the publishers to allow us to then gain a seat in one of their pro majors. We did it. Right. We've done it with Call of Duty. We've done it with Capcom and on Street Fighter. We did it with Rocket League this past year. Yeah. The team that won our Rocket League event, we had the largest Rocket League event in North America this year.
Wow. Okay.
They had over 5,100 teams of 3 playing on our platform.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's astounding. Yeah, it's great. And then we culminated to the final 16 at Fan Expo here. The winning team, 3 16-year-olds. I always forget the name of the team. I'm sorry, I'm not going to remember it as I was sitting here.
I remember it was somebody, and there was something that had to do with flip flops as well. I think they were wearing flip flops or something like that. They were. I can't quite remember.
They were so much. If you were there, right?
I was there.
Well, you saw them. They were having so much fun, and had big smiles on their faces. They couldn't have been a better team to win. Well, 2 weeks later, they're at DreamHack in Montreal competing.
Exactly.
What happens? They get their butts handed to them at their very first round. But
not there yet.
Not there yet. But still, we
gives them that opportunity.
We help them to put their names and their persona and their team in the spotlight, and that's our difference. And there's a lot of tournament operators in the space, but we've been doing this a while, and we bent over backwards to make sure the publishers that we're working with are happy with what we're doing, that we're treating their games with the ultimate respect, and they reward us with great things like seats in majors, swag, prize money, sponsorships. So it's a really important part of who we are and what we do to have that kind of.
The one sort of Call of Duty World Gaming live event that I attended, I believe Ure was there. There was Face Clan Black as well.
That was just last year.
Yeah, that was just last year.
Yep.
That was a great one. And you said something a little bit earlier about your events being a lot friendlier, and that's something I noticed right away. The fans for Ure were very vocal. Everyone was talking to each other in between the matches. It was very easy to go and talk to anybody. It wasn't intimidating, and it was a great environment.
Again, it's great to hear. That's something we also strive to make sure that our events are lighter and friendlier, and friends and family and kids can come and if kids their parents don't mind watching an M-rated shooter, we have a lot of kids, and as long as the parents are there, that's fine. So
there you
go. So that's a big part. But ultimately, and it's not just a live event that we want to be friendlier. Our funnel starts online. Yeah. And so we are always making sure our events we prize out more deeply than some events, not just top 3. We'll prize out the top 24, something like that, just so everybody who's involved and is doing well will be rewarded and
can feel an element of success
and ultimately come back to compete again. So
you guys are hosting WSG on your platform as well.
That's right.
I guess for North America, it's just that
North America, we have both. We have U.S. and Canadian. This is our second year doing it. This is WSG is the Alibaba. They changed their name. They used to be Ali Sports. Now they're Alibaba Sports. And we ran the qualifiers last year, and we're running the qualifiers again this year. World Gaming Tournaments platform, the tech side of our world works really well for the qualifiers this year. It's PES, StarCraft 2, Counter-Strike, and Dota. Yeah, it's just for this year. Although Counter-Strike has a women's competition as well.
Right.
Last year we had Hearthstone, and what else am I missing? Something else I'm missing from last year.
There was. I can't.
eSports changes so fast.
Yeah,
I competed in the Dota WSG qualifiers actually, and it was a lot of fun. And the platform, everything went smoothly. The tournament ran very smoothly. We actually got disqualified though because we had one international student, so I see the rules changed a little bit this year.
Yeah. Well, that's too bad. Yeah, that we were adhering very closely to what the Alibaba Sports people wanted. So
it acts as like a World Cup type event. So you have to represent.
Right.
You have to represent your country. So
we're through our online now for this year, and the winning teams. I don't think they've been announced yet. But they'll be the championship events for each of there'll be final 2 teams, for each of the events from both U.S. and Canada will compete in Montreal.
Right.
We're doing it at the new Waveform studio in Montreal. That'll be cool. It'll be very cool. I've not seen it yet, so I've seen pictures and renderings, but I haven't seen the actual space yet. So that's
I would love to see that. But
I'm excited.
So that'll be our next big World Gaming, at least our live event culmination. But then we've got a series we haven't announced. We've got some really interesting things we're going to be announcing, and
you were teasing Rocket League a little bit and stuff like that.
Well, we have some big announcements coming, and both on the World Gaming side and the CSL side. I'm sorry to be vague. When does this run? When will this podcast run?
Next Monday.
Okay, yeah. I can't. Sorry. I thought if it was a month from now, I'd record it.
Oh, that's fine. We understand. You got to keep some things under wraps.
For sure.
Yeah.
But we'll have in the first 2 weeks of December. It gets kind of lost if it goes any later. But the first 2 weeks in December, we'll have 4 big announcements between War Gaming and CSL.
Okay, so look out for that, everybody.
Exactly.
Yeah, first couple of weeks of December, and
so that's World Gaming. I think let's tie a nice little bow on World Gaming. But before we do that, I do want to know, just as the CEO, what is your role? What do you do?
Well, I try and keep it all together, and keep everybody synchronized and working in concert with one another. I have a really good team that doesn't need a lot of oversight from me. It's
always nice.
It's phenomenal, and I learn a lot from them every day. The thing that I get most involved with, and again, having grown up in this business, the publisher relationships, which are all important for us. are the things that I lean in heavily upon, and largely because I know most of these people. I grew up with most of the people that,
right.
You know, when Riot launched in 10 years ago, they just had their 10th anniversary when League of Legends just launched.
Man, and those were some big announcements there as well.
Those are some great things. But Brandon Beck and Mark Merrill, the two founders of Riot, I helped them launch Riot. We did in that era, we were doing all the retail stuff, the little prepaid cards that you
right.
Yeah. So we did all that for Riot, and I when the announcement came, I sent Mark and Brandon a picture of us sitting in this dumpy little kitchen that was part of their first office in LA, and I said, do you remember this? We were talking about League of Legends. They were pure. Their vision was pure from day one. First meeting I had with them, I said, this is going to be a massive success, and lo and behold, they've done remarkably well. So for me, I think the work that I do and the value that I hopefully continue to bring to the company is that these relationships, which we couldn't live without. So many tournament organizers will just, they'll poach a game, and offer, and that's all well and good. It's because there's a lot of work to be a good partner with a publisher, but at the same time, if you do it properly, the publisher brings us so much. They bring us marketing, bring us social, they bring us licensing. They'll help us with talent. It's a really important part of it. We don't pay license fees. They all recognize the value that we bring from marketing and awareness and running events. They all know,
and the development of their game. So
that's right.
Yeah, the competitive side.
So if there's one area that I, as CEO, lean in on mostly, it's with the publisher relation. I also get very involved. For us, monetization is very important, and still not, we're still not, people aren't beating down our doors to give us money to sponsor our events. So, so there's a lot of, the good news is we do feel a tipping point there. We've never had more active conversations going on with potential sponsors than we've ever had at this point. So, but that's not just us, that's the whole industry is feeling that too, which is a great thing. And obviously a lot of, I deal a lot with the Cineplex, the corporate entity, at this point, continuing to be our parent, deal a lot with the the financial side, the business side of making sure we're making money, and
of course, also very important,
and it hasn't been easy. This is still a new space, and people are just getting they're starting to get their heads around it. But as I started to say earlier, the great thing about this space is what has happened these last 2 years when the Overwatch League and League of Legends franchise model and Call of Duty now CDL franchise model and NBA 2K franchise model. When people see those now, they may not understand what Overwatch is, but they sure see a structure that looks familiar. It looks like the NFL, looks like NBA, looks like Premier League, and it's teams that are part of leagues that are franchises based in cities that play teams and franchises based in other cities that are part of a league structure where there's a even in this, there's a combine, there's a draft, there's a preseason, there's a regular season, a postseason, and a championship. And
I've been learning a lot about that recently.
And so the franchise model has been, I think people debate about this all the time, but for me and for us, I think it's clarified very, very well what eSports is all about. It also has clarified, Alex, to your point, what's missing in esports. And with all this pro activation going on now and all these pro leagues and pro players and teams and media recognizing the value of some of these pro activations, it's glaringly obvious that the amateur infrastructure is lacking. And we're doing our part to bring that in terms of our developmental funnel and some of the things we mentioned with the publishers. That path to pro is a really important thing, and players see that. Okay, I can go to a World Gaming event, or I can be involved in a CSL league, knowing that if I do well, I'll have a straight ahead or more direct path to getting to the pros. And not everybody can be a pro, as you know.
Definitely not. Well, I think one of the issues right now with the development is that with sports, you can start sports at such a young age and start developing your skills, and then you still have so much room and time to grow. So that's sort of, people are now catching on, oh, my 16-year-old son or daughter or whoever it may be. But pro soccer players, they may have been playing soccer since they were 6, since they could walk.
Right.
Yeah, that's somewhere that I think we're getting closer and closer to. Collegiate is there, and then it's sort of working its way down to high school and stuff like that.
That's exactly right.
So.
Well, and it's not, the play and the participation side of this is very important, but also it's, how do I improve my skills? How do I improve my strategy? How do physiologically do I get up to be a better player? And so content is a big part of this as well. And we're doing a lot more with content. We've always had some content plays around a sub brand that we call Strategy Academy, which is really tips and tricks on steroids. Okay. And we're about to launch a couple of big content pieces that take a game, dissect it into all its key sub play components, and it becomes a tutorial essentially, but a tutorial on steroids that people can consume. We'll be launching this online, but we'll also be supplementing it with live delivery of this in almost like clinics or.
So would that series sort of be a how to play this game, or would it be like how to play this game competitively?
It would be more to the latter, how to play this game competitively, and how to improve your skills to play it in more to be better at playing it competitively. So
exactly. Okay,
so
cool.
we've done Strategy Academy things for a number of years, but now building it up into a really nice content piece, and we've got all of our partners are saying we want you to bring this for our game, and largely they're subsidizing the cost of the content that we're developing. So, which
is fantastic because they're making a large portion of the money in the industry right now. So.
They're making most of the money in there, but they're also acknowledging that this pro layer, they're so fragile. If there isn't an infrastructure for amateur that feeds the pro side, and so they're investing to build it. They're not investing in infrastructure that they own and control, but they're investing in people like us and companies like us to
which is great for the rest of the esports industry.
That's exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly right.
All right, so we're going to take a little break. When we get back, we are going to continue our conversation with Wim. We're going to be talking more about Collegiate Star League and all of the good stuff that has to do with them. So we will see you in just a second. We're back with our conversation with Wim Stocks. Next, we're going to go into Collegiate Star League. We've talked a lot about world gaming. Now I want to go a little bit further into the collegiate scene. We've learned a little bit on this podcast already about collegiate in kind of the smaller scale, and now we want to kind of zoom out a little bit more and see the larger scale of things. So
big picture stuff.
Yeah, Wim, can you tell us a little bit about what CSL is?
Sure. CSL, Collegiate Star League, a collegiate organization that we're the largest in North America. We are all colleges that we're part of now are part of our activation are in either the U.S. or Canada. Yeah. Most of them are U.S. based. 90+% are U.S.
really?
based.
Okay. Yeah.
Canada, we have good news is great schools involved. UBC, obvly, as you know, is one of powerhouse, and Ryerson is
they're the leading right now.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. Great, last 2 years it's been UBC versus Robert Morris in our League of Legends final. So all of a sudden, here's a brand new rivalry. Forget Ohio State, Michigan, and football. It's UBC. It's UBC Robert Morris in the League of Legends CSL Grand Finals. So we are. We've been doing this. We bought the company from a gentleman in Santa Monica in 2015. It was much smaller. It was 100 schools, and they were only playing StarCraft.
Really?
And, Duran Parsi is his name, the young man we bought the company from. He's still part of our realm, but he was a good StarCraft player, really good StarCraft player. He was top 10 ranked in the U.S.
Wow. Okay.
And used his stature and his network to build a small collegiate activation. And we loved it. We thought this is where esports is going, and this is the next part. Here we are in the amateur space. This is the next part of amateur that also people understand. Just as the pros helped us, pro levels of esports helped define who we are. College really helps define what esports is, will be. And you can argue that, in fact, people argue all the time that, we don't need collegiate esports because esports has gotten big without it. Well, I'd argue to the sort of the same thematic that anything that can help brands and the media and the general population understand esports in the frame of a traditional sports is a really good thing. And
absolutely.
And so all these schools that they started their esports programs. Generally, they were started as clubs. In fact, many of them still exist as clubs.
Right.
Intramural, probably the better way to think of it. But the bigger schools now, as I know you're aware, the programs are being taken over by the athletic departments, and that's a really good thing because the athletic departments are where the money is.
Exactly.
And
more
so
funding, more varsity backing,
more funding, more support from the colleges. There
are a lot of similar resources too, like mental performance.
Right.
Is a big thing in both esports and in traditional.
Physical health as well. All that. Yeah.
Yeah. We when we started there, Robert Morris was really a pioneer. They offered the first varsity program. It was around League of Legends, and they awarded letters. You could play on the Robert Morris men's basketball team or the women's volleyball team, or you could play on the Robert Morris League of Legends team and earn your varsity letters. So they showed a lot of vision. Kurt Melcher was the athletic director at the time. He's since left his joined agency that does nothing but esports, a company called Intersport out of Chicago. It's where he is now. We stayed very close, but he set the stage. And what was the first year was one school doing the varsity program. The next year was 7. Now there are over 200 schools that have esports as part of varsity programs.
So very quick growth.
Very quick growth, and it's going to blossom from there. This year, we're just getting through our collegiate year follows the traditional sports year. So we start registrations in September once kids are back on campus. Generally, starting our leagues in October. So we've been into the first half of our school season now, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, and then we take a break at holiday, and then we come back in January, and either a season continues or we start a new season for some of the games. Like our Gears 5, we just signed and announced that our Gears 5 league actually will start in January.
Wow,
So this is how we started the program. We built a program. Now we have every game as you know is a league. We have 14 different leagues. We have a Counter-Strike league, 14 different leagues. We have Counter-Strike League, Dota 2. I'm not gonna get them all. Counter-Strike, Dota 2, League of Legends, Smash Ultimate, Street Fighter 5, NBA 2K 20.
Can he get them?
Let me think. I'm not gonna get all 14. Fortnite.
Ooh, okay.
What I count our 14 leagues. We also have summer leagues, and we only do StarCraft, Hearthstone, Overwatch in summer leagues. So I'm down to a couple that I'm missing, but in any event, Gears 5, and we did also announce this year, really cool. My of course old school. Magic the Gathering Arena.
Nice. MTG, yes.
So,
very big. That's exciting.
I was a huge MTG fan growing up, and so bringing the arena version of it into CSL has been great. Wizards of the Coast is the publisher, owner of the IP. But
what would you say the biggest collegiate titles are?
The 3 biggest are League of Legends, Counter-Strike, and Dota 2.
Okay. And do you ever run into problems with having some, like M-rated games with the colleges, or
no, not really. We haven't been. When someone's in college, generally they're 18, and that's the delineation for an M-rated title. So we don't have any any restrictions, or we don't invoke certainly any restrictions on players.
Sorry. So have you had any issues with the schools like having a problem with that
with shooters?
Yeah.
Well, some of the conferences where now as this has become more formalized and schools are involved and now conferences are involved. We have a nice relationship with a couple of conferences that are doing more formalized things. They do tend to stay away from shooters.
I see. Okay.
Counter-Strike is not their favorite. And Gears 5, we just launched it, so we don't know if we're going to get any sort of major pushback from colleges or conferences as a result of that. But Counter-Strike for us has been one of our biggest titles. When the schools get involved and these become more officially part of a school athletic department, I think those shooters are probably going to become much less popular at least in that regard. But
right.
But thus far it's worked out.
So is Rocket League a popular one? Just because it's a lot more.
Well, we ran into this point Rocket League. We ran as a summer league this past year. We will take it on in the spring of this year. We'll start now that we have our epic sort of. Support coming from both for Fortnite and now ultimately for Rocket League. So we will start. Rocket League will be a big title for collegiate. We haven't announced it. I just did announce it. We haven't announced it, but and we haven't started registration yet. So we're working through all the final. That's cool. Okay. There's my
there it is.
There's my leak.
There's my leak.
One leak.
It's leaked on the.
You started it though. You asked me Rocket League. I should have kept my mouth shut, but that's okay. It's all good. It's all good. So what else can I tell you about collegiate?
Well, I can actually prompt you for something. We discussed with Sarah Wag earlier a couple weeks back. Yeah. The future of collegiate esports. She gave her take. It was great. I want to know, where do you see collegiate going the way that it's going right now?
Well, the great thing about, I think esports collegiate esports from a participation perspective is great. It's helping build awareness. It's helping schools understand it better. It's bringing in a whole new view of what a student athlete is, and again, very contemporary and very much in a parallel path of what's happening sort of in the general marketplace. But the great thing that I think is that esports is spawning on college campuses is the burgeoning interest in careers in esports and careers in gaming, and that the smart schools are now recognizing. First of all, smart schools are doing a couple of things. They recognize that the esports players are some of the smartest STEM students on the planet. So they're recruiting these kids to come on campus and participate in their esports programs. But the other thing that's happening as a result of that is that these kids, not everybody, as we talked earlier, not everybody can be the top 1% and turn to pros. But it is spawning and spurring so much interest in what a career in esports could look like from the business side, from the marketing side, from the production side. Ryerson locally here does a great job in their media department about production. The production value that esports events have to have, and they're training the boys and girls, or men and women in college to be esports producers. So to me, that's the really cool thing that's happening on esports in collegiate esports. Yes, we're gonna identify some great players that come out of collegiate esports, and it's another organizational way for a better player to distinguish themselves. But the curricula, the support from the schools, the infrastructure that they're building to help kids get ahead in esports as a business or as a career. There's a whole other
side of esports that doesn't really get any of the spotlight. Really, all the focus is on the players.
That's right.
I've been a huge proponent of that for a long time. Is this esports is so much more than just the people playing it. Now, of course, that's important. We wouldn't have esports without them, but we also wouldn't have esports without the people putting on the show. We wouldn't have esports without the people putting together the tournaments, without, creating the businesses and spearheading the businesses, doing what you do, doing what we do. Like, it's all important. They all feed into each other.
Is there a lack of esports teachers? Is that something that you're finding?
Well, it's funny. After next Wednesday, you can call me professor.
Oh, okay.
Because I'll be giving a class at NYU with a gentleman who is the professor. He's a lawyer. His name is Jason Chung. He's actually a fairly renowned esports lawyer, and he has become the professor of esports for New York University, for NYU.
Wow.
And I can think of Emerson College in Boston, Kevin Mitchell, who works at Viacom, and in fact helps Viacom. Viacom's not really in the esports business, but they're in the gaming business, and a lot of their venues they've adapted for esports events
as well.
And Kevin is the principal there, handling all of esports, and he is a professor at Emerson College of esports. So Dr. Mark Williams, who we're very close with HBCU. I don't think you guys probably know what HBCU stands for. It's a historic Black college and university system in the United States. It's not a conference, but it's an affiliation, and there are I believe is 240 schools, and they've turned their attention and their sights to esports as another career opportunity for kids that attend these schools. And I've spoken at a couple of those schools. I was invited just in September to go. The White House in the United States does a big initiative around HBCU. Really? And I was invited to come speak about esports.
Wow! Okay,
so that was
the White House.
Yeah, that was cool. It was a really cool. It was the day. Also, I remember it because the president was supposed to show up. He didn't. But that was also the day that his national security secretary John Bolton resigned.
Okay.
You might remember there was that was a big thing in the United States. Yeah. Maybe not as big up here, but that's why the president didn't show up. But in any event, it was a great event, a great opportunity. I was completely honored and flattered to speak to this group. I had a ton of interest. And now we're signing up all these various HBU schools.
Right.
These are schools like Morehouse and Jarvis Christian I can think of 1,000. But they're steeped in their legacy as black colleges and universities and turning now all their attention to esports as just another means and a whole nother set of curriculum for their students. So that's been a really fun thing to be part of as well.
That's really cool to hear.
Absolutely.
Actually.
No, it's very rare that you get the opportunity to introduce a whole other subject into your curriculum.
Right. That's right.
Like imagine putting math in, right? Like
before math
was exactly. This is what
that's a good. I hadn't thought of it that way. That's a really good way to think about it. But that's exactly what it is. The schools that have the good sports programs are also sort of wised up and said that template works really well for esports.
Yeah.
And here at Ryerson, the sports group, sports media group, is now really embracing esports, and it's not a difficult extension. It's right there, and templates that to the larger part of this overall discussion is that the template of sports works really well for esports. Yeah, it's going to break down in certain places. Understanding a game of baseball very different from understanding a game of Overwatch, but but nonetheless, the templates that people understand around sports are really helping raise awareness for and raise understanding around esports, and for me that's a really good thing.
So sports are always geolocated. Do you think geolocated sort of teams are the future of esports?
Well, I'm bullish on that structure, and largely because look what happened in the Overwatch League. You see who the owners are. Most of them are traditional sports teams owners.
Yeah.
Because two primary reasons. Number one, they know that the infrastructure they built around traditional sports, they can bring to esports.
Exactly.
For ticket sales, concession sales, merch sales, broadcast, venues for that matter. So they're looking at applying all of their investments in their traditional sports teams to esports. Only works to a degree,
right.
Understandably so. But the other reason that I'm part owner of the New York Excelsior in the Overwatch League.
Oh, you are? Fantastic.
And,
okay.
There's a small ownership group, and I'm one of the ownership group people. And
interesting.
And
I gotta say, the New York Excelsior branding, I really love. I love the collab that you guys did with Undefeated. That was really cool.
That was
well,
we had a great agency help us with that, a company called Mother Design in New York, and they knew nothing about gaming, knew nothing about esports, and took their very disciplined approach to building a brand new brand. And I agree with you. And I'm a little biased, obviously, but I was part of that. We sat through every meeting because I was so intrigued by what this was going to become.
Yeah.
And now our second team, we also have the new Call of Duty New York team. It's called the Subliners.
Subliners.
Also very different sort of branding, different approach, and different name for that matter. But some people like it. And some people don't. Some people like the more traditional, the mascot so something concrete. They see the Sasquatch or the Titans, for example, or the Houston Outlaws with the guns, and but we went very differently, and I think it. Yeah. I appreciate your comments. I think it's great. I think we knocked it out of the park. But the second point I was going to make is that one of the Jeff Wilpon, who's the patriarch of the Mets and of the family that owns the Mets, has been very vocal about why they've invested their $25 million, and we're a few of us involved in that. But they said that they don't know how to talk to a 22-year-old. They don't know how to. They don't. Baseball. The mean age of a baseball fan is 57 years old.
Is it?
Yeah.
Wow.
And
57. Okay.
So when they're trying to figure out how to get more youthful audiences to show up at Citi Field in New York, they see esports as the means by which to do it. That
makes sense.
And you talk to any owner of the Overwatch League in the Overwatch League franchise or in the Call of Duty franchise or League of Legends for that matter, if they have traditional sports ownership, the primary reason they've made those investments and own the teams is that this is their opportunity for a lot less money. Even $25 million is a lot of money, but for them, when their Mets are valued at $2 billion,
right?
They need to figure out quickly before they all die off, how to reach a younger fan base.
Oh yeah, definitely. The demographic is the biggest thing attracting the investment.
That's right. That's right. So. And as we all know, a millennial and Gen Z, their habits around consuming anything are so vastly different than what the traditional mainstream's all about. Mm-hmm. I talk an awful lot about this, and I really think that we have two mainstreams now. There is the traditional mainstream that goes to baseball games, and there's the new mainstream that goes to Overwatch matches. I mean, that is that distinctly different. They run in parallel, but only recently are those mainstreams starting to intersect. And I'll give ESPN credit for that. Here they've done traditional sports for so long. Now they're starting finally to do more regular programming around esports. Overwatch League being definitely the best example of that. And now these mainstreams are starting to overlap. I've been talking friends of my little focus group of my friends. I talk to my friends about what esports is, and they look at me like I was, from Mars. And the day the first grand finals, Overwatch grand finals that was in Barclays 2 years ago. Right. ESPN broadcast on that Sunday afternoon.
I was there.
Yeah, I was too. And I started getting texts because, now I see what you're doing. Now I get what this is. And it took the traditional media placement or media broadcast for people to start to see what this is. So you could also argue that the new mainstream doesn't need the traditional mainstream. You could, but look what now all of a sudden there's understanding and there's acceptance and okay, now we see it again. This notion of the traditional sports template is really, really helpful. And to the question about franchising, I think that just helps build it even further. And so I'll always be a fan of franchising. There will be those that say we don't need franchising because look how big this whole realm has gotten without it. But I think it's helping so many ways.
It may not be a need per se, but it's definitely not. It's definitely still necessary. It still helps. It still helps with the exposure and everything like that. So,
and I know we've not as an Overwatch League team owner, we've not had the benefit yet of getting the team back into the local market. The last 2 years in Overwatch League has all the matches have been running out of Burbank in the Blizzard Arena, and we'll do fan events like most teams do a fan event back in the local market, but competitions have not been run in the individual cities. That's what everyone we're so excited about, to get them back into New York and start building their brands, building their personas, building their presence, and that's what makes a team. That's what makes it, and that what builds a fan base for a team. So I'm
very excited. They're called homestands.
Homestands, correct.
Yes.
Yep.
So you guys will be. The teams are all going home, and then they'll be able to play in their home markets and start building that. I'm so excited for this. I am too. It's what I've been waiting for 2 years.
I think I don't think the Overwatch League could have started with that, but I'm thrilled to see the Call of Duty team league is starting with that. That they're going right to home and away matches, and they're done in homestand. The first one. The first homestand is in Minneapolis, my hometown, and the Minnesota Vikings own the Call of Duty franchise in Minnesota.
Right.
And they're throwing every fan right into the face of winter. The first homestand is the third week in January. So that's the first big launch event for the new Call of Duty League. So that'll be exciting to see how that goes.
Yeah.
Very cool. Before we end things off, I want to end CSL the same way that I ended World Gaming. What do you do as the CEO of CSL?
So for CSL, because we're still in major growth mode, and we are still only scratching the surface for the number of schools that we can bring into. We're at this year, we're at over 1,800 schools competing in this year's leagues. So that's a collection of all the leagues. So it's a total. We tallied yesterday for the first time how many players are involved. We're over 70,000 this year.
Wow.
Which is last year we were at 55,000. So nice growth, just numbers of players and number of teams. Our goal was 7,000 teams this year. We're over 11,000 teams. So that was every year we think that the growth is going to slow, and it just continues to heat up. So for us, building more infrastructure for CSL is really important. So that's what I focus on is, where without breaking the bank, where we need resources, where we need help, where we need support. We have a great relationship with Twitch. I spend a lot of time with the Twitch guys because that's so important. Our presence on Twitch, very important, not only for us as a brand and for the schools that compete in our leagues. They want to be on the front page of Twitch, but for the sponsors too. All the sponsors. I mean, a big part of being a sponsor of CSL is getting plussed up on the Twitch broadcast.
Yeah.
So that's the publishers are very important there as well. Sponsors are very important there as well. So the great news is between even though World Gaming and CSL are different brands, they again thematically stand for the same thing. Path to the pros, amateurs. Right. So important that these structures support players who are aspiring to be better, how to get better. We have the same dynamic on the CSL side of a winning team coming out of a collegiate league will get a seat or a path or a preferred spot in a combine or a draft or a pro team. So for me, I think of them a little bit differently. We have more interactions with conferences, more interactions with schools. The schools themselves are I try and make myself as available as possible to talk to school athletic directors and school chancellors. And today I had a breakfast meeting with the head of the media department for Ryerson. These are all really important partners for us, and so I spend a fair amount of time.
It seems like you're very good at relationship building, knowing people, and also it seems like you're very good at names. I don't know if that's, but like it's something that I picked up. It seems like you remember names like very well. I find a lot of people in esports are actually kind of lack that skill. So
they're more focused on winning. I'm just we're just trying to help people get in the position to win, and that's to compete. So that's our whole company is in that same regard. So for sure, that's great.
Well, this has been very informative. Before we end things off, I do just want to very selfishly ask this question. Back when we were talking about world gaming, you had mentioned that kind of the whole process of going into a theater and finding things that didn't work. What esports were the best to have in a theater?
We well, I do think our Call of Duty events worked really well. The great thing about a theater that nobody picks up until they're in the theater is the sound. Yes. The sound is great. No, you go to a big arena, you don't get the sound like you do in a Dolby 7.1 surround. I mean, that's the best part of the theater experience. That's true. If the flow weren't so difficult, a theater would be a great place for an esports event.
Sure.
We've been talking about redesigning a theater that enables more flow.
That would be so cool.
The thing for us and the Cineplex, none of those venues that are set up for esports are dedicated to esports. We can roll out the desks, we can roll out the production facility, and at 3 in the afternoon they could be showing movies again.
Definitely.
So that was important to Cineplex too, that they weren't going to, because just like movies, we don't run esports events every day. Right. There's going to be a fair amount of idle time. So it was important that these theaters be more convertible, more malleable and flexible for events. So there are certain events that worked pretty. I think Call of Duty has worked really well. We did a weird. You guys remember the game Uncharted?
Yeah.
Uncharted had a team multiplayer shooting. Okay. And we ran a pretty sizable esports event around Uncharted. Now that was at the behest of Sony. Sony is the developer publisher of Uncharted, and Sony was that was our second year. Sony was our sponsor, so they said, "Can you do a?" And I wasn't sure what kind of reception we're going to get. We had a great amount of participation. Didn't have a huge crowd come to watch it, but it showed very well. They also I think their soundtrack and their score was engineered beautifully. The sound was, I remember it being amazing in the theater. So
you're bringing up that sound, and like I've spoke to a number of players, and something that has come up sometimes is the satisfaction of sort of the gun noises. And if that's not right, it doesn't give you the proper satisfaction. Sound is actually very important to the game and very overlooked.
Yeah, that's right.
A lot of arenas you go to, or even it's loud. The sound is everywhere, and you don't get that satisfaction.
That's right.
It's a really overlooked part, actually. I
think that's a really good point. And the players aren't as concerned about sound. They're obviously their heads. But an audience,
as a fan,
you want to be able to
feel those shots and everything.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Mm-hmm. That's right.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're going to slow things down, end things off. But before I do, I want to try and. Well, honestly, I could sit here for the next. I could sit here for hours and talk about this. But what I want to do real quick is just work for you for a little bit, and give some general shout outs to World Gaming and CSL. So, of course, World Gaming, you can find them on Twitter at World Gaming. You could go to worldgaming.com or on Discord at discord.gg/worldgaming. Are there any other places that people can find World Gaming that people should know about?
Well, Discord has turned into a huge channel for us. We're thrilled with what Discord has done for us and our abilities to reach communities of players and stay engaged with communities of players. But no, I think you hit it up. You can. If you really want to, if you're completely desperate, you can go to LinkedIn. I do a lot of posting on LinkedIn. Not that we joke about this an awful lot, but I'll post something on LinkedIn largely because it's B2B. It's our business partners will see it, and it's amazing how much of an appetite there is on LinkedIn for esports content. And I do dumb posts. I do some that are serious. And whenever we have some significant announcement, I post it. And I'm literally astounded at the kind of following that our LinkedIn posts get around esports
it
content.
Has insane natural reach.
It does, and again, I can't be authentic on Instagram, so I don't. And for the sake of our company, but on LinkedIn, because it's our partners and its sponsors and other tournament operators and publishers, it's a really important place for us to be. And as it turns out, I'm kind of the content creator for LinkedIn. So, yeah.
So is that through your own personal LinkedIn?
No, that's my LinkedIn, but it's all World Gaming and CSL.
All through World Gaming. Okay. If people were to go to World Gaming on LinkedIn, then that's where they would find all of your fun posts.
If they go to Wim Stocks on LinkedIn, they will find all my...
search up Wim Stocks on LinkedIn. There you go. And then same thing for CSL. You can go to C Star League on Twitter, cstarleague.com, or discord.gg/CSL. Wim, is there any other place that people can find you and things that you're doing these days?
No, that's pretty much it. I try when it's pertinent and when I don't think it's completely stupid. I will post something on LinkedIn, but that's where I speak at a number of events.
Anything coming up?
I have a big thing in Minneapolis by a company called Star Marketing. They do a series of symposiums, and at my behest, they're devoting one to esports on December 4th. So, I guess I'm kind of the keynote. But this past week, I spoke at a top Fortune 100 CMO conference in Carlsbad, California. That was a ton of fun. Still, here are these brands so important for us and so important for the industry. Some of these the CMOs are still just getting their arms around esports. So this notion of it becoming more clarified, more understood, more more accepted is really important for the whole industry. It was great to be able to talk one-on-one on American Express and Boeing and all these huge brands were there, and some of them are still scratching their head around esports. American Express, I had a great conversation with the woman CMO of American Express, and she is part of a Women in STEM initiative. Really? So she's asked me to come speak they have a big gala in Scottsdale or in Phoenix, Arizona in March, and I'm going to be the keynote for it. So women, and we would love to do you know the GIST girls here in Toronto?
No.
GIST there.
I haven't heard of them.
They won a couple of cohorts. It's helping women understand sports. And I've said to the three founders, I said, you guys should turn your attention to esports. And I think they're gonna get there, but they've done tremendous work. And my little joke is with it. I think esports needs you more than you need esports. But because we want and we need more women, not only
this is absolutely
participation in esports, but also on the business side. So this notion of women in STEM, it's a perfect attachment for another pulpit for me to stand up and talk about about esports. And
I would agree with that.
Yeah, so that's but these speaking engagements are fast and furious, and I can't do too many of them because it takes me away from my
oh yeah, definitely
my other duties. But
of course.
but I enjoy when I can do.
Well,
them,
as part of the esports industry, thank you for doing that. It helps us all. So
well, it's been fun. I pinch myself every day that I get to wake up and do this. And have for the last 30 years. So it's been a lot of fun.
There you go.
Yeah, what a career.
And it's been a lot of fun having you here today. Thank you so much, Wim, for talking to us for the past little bit.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Before we go, Alex, where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram, KrispyKim Donut.
You really need a better Instagram handle.
I love it. What are you saying?
You can find me anywhere at StillJustMike. You can find the podcast at BO3 Podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, or on Instagram at, again, BO3 Podcast, or email us at bo3@organizedgaming.co. Guys, we will see you next time for another episode of Best of 3. Have a great week.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.